Year 594 of the Holy Calendar. A panoramic view presents the prestigious Arcanist Academy of Candria. Among the crowd of applicants, a white-haired young boy stares in awe at the imposing structure of the academy, exclaiming how incredible it is. This boy is Luis Carrel, 13 years old. He notices the enormous number of applicants who, like him, have come to the greatest Arcanist school, each one displaying an unwavering determination. Suddenly, someone calls his name, Luis. He turns around to see who it is. A man wearing glasses rushes toward him. It is his adoptive father, Julian, who finally catches up, complaining breathlessly about how fast the boy is. Close behind him follows his adoptive mother, the Sierra. Looking worried, the Sierra asks Luis if he brought his identification and the hair dye, reminding him that he must make sure no one notices his unusual hair color. Luis assures her that everything is under control. Despite his confidence, her concern does not fade. She begs him not to do it, fearful of what might happen if someone attacks him because of his hair and eye color, especially since she has heard rumors that some examinees die during the test. Julian steps in, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder, and reminds her that magic is the only way to solve the boy's problem. He explains that in the Northern Empire, this is the only academy where commoners are allowed to take the exam, making this their only chance. The narration returns to the Arcanist Academy of Candria, emphasizing its prestige as the foremost institution founded by the royal family of Candria and one of the 10 great academies. It is a training ground for Arcanists, where the most powerful Grand Masters of the Empire teach. In the past 10 years, several guardians of non-noble origin have emerged, and most of them graduated from this very academy. Smiling with confidence, Julian concludes that this is the perfect environment for the boy to learn magic. Moved by Julian's reasoning, the Sierra finally agrees. Inspired, Luis declares his firm intention to become a great master. With a gaze full of pure determination, he reveals his ultimate goal: to grow stronger and reclaim the ownership of the orphanage from the hands of the church. Luis's bold declaration leaves the Sierra completely stunned and speechless. With tears in her eyes, she confesses that she has become too dependent on him, that she can't even calm his reckless behavior, and that she worries constantly about the orphanage, feeling like a terrible mother. Julian consoles her, telling her that she is doing more than enough by taking care of so many children. Luis looks at his adoptive mother with a sincere smile and tells her that he is only alive thanks to her. In his heart, he feels truly grateful. The scene then shifts into a flashback of his previous life. In that past existence, the world of dreams meant everything to him. However, his severe asthma confined him to a life dependent on a respirator, which eventually led even his parents to resent him for being a financial burden. Despite his fragile body, his passion for martial arts never faded, and he immersed himself in research from his wheelchair. That passion eventually bore fruit, culminating in his doctoral thesis on the martial arts industry, modern martial arts, and the possibility of their resurgence. He became an acclaimed scholar, a martial arts theorist whose work promised a bright future. In fact, his research was destined to contribute greatly to the development of the combat industry and the revival of martial arts themselves. But fate had other plans, and tragedy struck. A fellow scholar stole his thesis and with ruthless cruelty accused him of being the thief, stripping him of both his life's work and his honor. The traitor acted as though a sick man who could barely move did not deserve glory, stealing the recognition for the work of an entire lifetime. In the end, crushed by betrayal and illness, even his own parents abandoned him, removing the life support that kept him alive. As his life faded away, his final wish was painfully simple. He wanted to live longer. If there was a next life, he longed for a healthy body, a family that loved him, and the life of his own. And so, his wish was heard. His consciousness awakens in a new time and place, the year 90 of the Holy Calendar, in the village of Mantia, within the Northern Empire of Candria, 500 years before his current life. A young Sierra finds him. Another nun worries over his peculiar hair and eye color.
Luis's consciousness flickers in confusion. Where am I? He wonders. I should be dead. The other nun, uneasy, warns the Sierra that the child might bring disaster to the facility, seeing him as an ill omen. But the Sierra, wearing a compassionate smile, declares that the child is innocent. Unable to abandon him, she takes him in and gives him a new name, Luis Carrel. The flashback ends. Back in the present, Luis reflects on his incredible fortune. Now he has a beautiful family that loves him and a healthy body, everything he had always dreamed of. But the harsh reality of the world soon shatters his moment of peace. An arrogant noble suddenly shoves the Sierra aside, shouting, "Move out of the way, commoner." She falls to the ground from the force of the push. Luis and Julian shout her name, rushing to her side in panic and fury. The noble mocks their ambitions, sneering at the idea of a commoner becoming a great master. Why dream of something so impossible? Luis's eyes ignite with icy rage, the noble's contempt fueling a deep resentment within him. The noble wipes his hand disdainfully as if he had touched something filthy, and says sarcastically, "Oops, I touched a filthy commoner. Hope my luck doesn't run out." Trembling with anger, Luis clenches his teeth and whispers a curse under his breath. "Damn bastards." Just as Luis is about to explode, Julian grips his arm tightly, stopping him in his tracks. Julian shoots him a stern look, reminding him that he must focus on the exam right now, not on fighting.
The Sierra also intervenes, sternly reminding him of his promise not to cause trouble at the academy. She begs him to endure for now. Caught between his rage and his family's pleas, Luis left speechless, forced to suppress his fury. With great effort, he calms himself. The Sierra places a comforting hand on his shoulder, and he quietly apologizes to his mother. The noble and his entourage walk away laughing mockingly as they leave. "Cowards, what a party pooper," one of them says. "You're lucky, trash," adds the other, as they walk off to get their numbers. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out. The crowd parts as people shout, "Make way! Lord Ken is arriving." A young man with blonde hair and a refined presence steps forward. He radiates an aura of nobility, and the people murmur that he truly looks like a noble, almost as if he were shining. He is introduced as Karena, heir of the Oranka family. As Luis watches the noble strut about, his anger hardens into cold determination. "Damn arrogant bastards," he thinks, his contempt deepening with every passing second. His gaze sharpens with a silent promise. This is no longer just anger. It is resolve forged from steel. "You'll see," he swears inwardly. "I'll prove to all of you that you underestimated a commoner." The Sierra looks at him with worry, but Luis takes her hands and offers a reassuring smile. "I'll be fine. I will definitely pass and become a great master." Meanwhile, the noble Kanar Ranka silently overhears Luis's bold declaration. The noble bullies laugh at him, but Luz, filled with determination, adds, "I'll learn magic and prove it to all of you." With renewed purpose, Lee bids farewell to his parents and runs toward the examination grounds, thinking, "In this life, I'll become the strongest and protect what is precious to me." He finishes that thought by looking at an image of his beloved adoptive family in his mind, smiling with determination. The Sierra watches him go, her concern clearly visible. Will he be all right? She wonders. Only 20 or 30 people pass each year, and this year there are 20,000 applicants. We just want that child to be safe. Julian, however, reassures her. He's more stubborn than anyone, he says calmly, confident in Luis's resolve. Once he decides to do something, he charges straight ahead without caring what others think. Supporting him is our job as his family. Moved by his words, the Sierra nods. You're right. Luis arrives at the examination hall and looks around at the massive crowd. Is this really the exam hall? He thinks, realizing something unsettling. Everyone is older than me. Suddenly, an imposing figure descends from the sky. His voice booms across the entire courtyard. The entrance examination for the Arcanist Academy of Candria will now begin. The man introduces himself with undeniable authority. I am the director of this academy and the supervisor of this examination. He is Aronian Smith, director of the Arcanist Academy of Candria. A wave of astonished murmurs ripples through the crowd. The great master director Aronian, people exclaim.
Lewis reflects on the power system of this world, where martial arcanists, and arcane practitioners exist, divided into 6 ranks. A pyramid of power forms in his mind, illustrating the hierarchy. At the base stands the apprentice, followed by fighter, master, grandmaster, sage, and at the very top, saint. Director Aronian, a grandmaster, stands at the 3rd highest level. Lewis realizes just how immense that title truly is. Represents the privileged class of this world. Aronian announces the first trial, pointing toward a long staircase. The first test is to climb these steps, which are guarded by senior students. He explains that the passes for the first exam are placed behind those upperclassmen, who block the path. There are a total of 1,000 passes, and only those who manage to obtain one will be allowed to participate in the next test. The director warns that once all the passes are taken, the examination will immediately end. He raises a finger, preparing to give the signal to begin. With a voice that resounds with overwhelming power, Aronian shouts, "Begin!" Instantly, the mass of applicants surges toward the staircase. Brimming with confidence, the first wave charges forward, convinced the exam will be easy. "I'll be the first," one of them shouts. At the top of the stairs, one of the senior students waits with a sinister smile. "Examinees," he says mockingly, "welcome to hell." With a roar, the student releases an overwhelming wave of red and black energy, an intense killing intent that crashes down upon the aspirants. Their vision distorts and blurs as if the world itself is collapsing around them under the crushing pressure. Terror seizes their hearts. Many scream in fear, their faces twisted in panic as the killing intent assaults their minds. Unable to withstand the pressure, numerous applicants collapse to the ground unconscious. One by one, they are disqualified by number. Panic spreads among the remaining candidates. "Was that an attack?" someone cries out. Another recognizes the senior student. "That's Lord Sheed, the son of the Minister of Finance, last year's top scorer. How terrifying." While chaos reigns all around him, Lewis remains completely calm, chillingly so. He immediately identifies the pressure. That was killing intent just now, wasn't it? The remaining applicants, who are barely standing, turn in shock, staring at him, someone who is not only still standing, but looks entirely unaffected. Lewis begins to walk forward, utterly unperturbed. "That wasn't an attack," he explains to himself. "He simply released his aura to intimidate us." Drawing on the knowledge of his past life, he analyzes the situation with cold clarity. "Anyone with a weak will would naturally faint from fear," he concludes, glancing at the many unconscious bodies scattered across the ground. To him, this mental trial is a child's play. The noble who had harassed Liu earlier notices him. "Exactly," the noble says with a smug smile. "Looks like you've got some guts." His smile turns malicious. "But there are plenty of talented people here," he adds, his voice dripping with disdain. "And besides, there's no place for commoners." Louis's eyes narrow. I see rage filling them at the blatant discrimination and arrogance of the noble. The noble's gaze grows predatory. "But since you're already here," he says, his intent sharpening dangerously. With a shout, the noble unleashes his own killing intent, a crushing wave of hostility surging straight toward Louis, a concentrated column of red energy aimed directly at Louis. "I'll make you kneel," the noble roars. The attack is so powerful that even the few remaining aspirants who were still standing are knocked to the ground, screaming in agony and begging for their lives as they are crushed by the pressure. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, Louis remains standing, completely motionless and utterly indifferent to the noble's overwhelming killing intent. A smile slowly forms on Louis's face. "Is that all your killing intent can do?" he mocks. "It's enough to scare ordinary people, but for me, memories from his past life flood his mind. Bloody battlefields, the ferocity of warriors, and the brutal reality of combat he had studied obsessively. In his thoughts, he stands surrounded by the silhouettes of countless warriors. Through relentless mental training, he had endured their murderous auras again and again, facing the killing intent of legendary warriors and monsters in his mind day after day. Compared to that, the noble's pressure is insignificant. Enraged by Louis's defiance, the noble throws a punch imbued with his red aura, attempting to overpower him by force. Louis smiles confidently. It won't work, he thinks, preparing to release his own power.
Louis erupts with energy. A powerful blue aura surges from within him, his eyes shining with an intense light. His blue aura crashes violently against the noble's red killing intent, completely nullifying it through sheer force of will. Clenching his fist, Nui prepares to counterattack. "I'll show you nobles," he growls, his voice heavy with suppressed fury. "What true killing intent really is," he roars, his eyes blazing with the accumulated power of a lifetime of mental training. Louis throws a single punch, but instead of physical contact, he unleashes a massive shockwave of pure killing intent, an invisible yet overwhelming force. The noble is hurled backward by the force of Louis' counterattack, utterly overwhelmed by a will forged through death and rebirth. The crowd stands frozen in shock at what they have just witnessed. They cannot believe that the arrogant noble has been defeated. The noble, eyes wide with disbelief, can only scream as he is flung away by a force he cannot comprehend. Louis' fist stops just short of physical contact, yet the shock wave of his will slams squarely into the noble's face. The noble crashes into the ground, completely defeated by a single blow of pure willpower. Louis stands over him victorious. Louis casts a cold, contemptuous gaze downward, a silent warning to anyone who dares underestimate him. Even Lord Sheed, the highest-scoring senior student, is left speechless, beads of sweat forming as he witnesses Du's terrifying display of power. The other aspirants are utterly confused. How did he do that without using magic, they wonder. He not only resisted killing intent, but struck down a senior student. He's only 14 or 15 years old, right? Ignoring the stunned stares of everyone around him, Louis remains standing, unwavering. In amazement, Louis walks past the stunned Lord Sheed and says coldly, "I will pass." He calmly approaches the board where the exam passes are displayed, leaving behind a shocked senior student and a crowd of astonished aspirants. With a simple, deliberate motion, Louis takes one of the pass cards, securing his success in the first trial. Enraged and humiliated, the defeated noble suddenly leaps to his feet, shouting, "Damn it!" As fury clouds his judgment, he charges at Louis from behind, his hand glowing with magical energy as he attempts a cowardly attack to reclaim his lost honor. Louis reacts instinctively without even turning around. His senses honed through his past life warn him of the approaching danger. With astonishing fluidity, he deflects the noble's magical strike with a single movement of his hand, displaying martial skill far beyond his age. The noble freezes in shock. "Impossible," he shouts. "A mere commoner blocked my attack without magic." Director Aronian appears in an instant, placing a firm hand on the noble's shoulder. "He has passed the first exam," he declares. The noble stammers, but he's a commoner." Aronian fixes him with a stern gaze. "The Arcanist Academy of Candria treats all examinees equally. Noble or commoner, we are all the same humans when facing monsters." Crushed, the noble bows deeply in apology. "You are absolutely right. Thank you." Louis also bows, showing respect for the director's wisdom. The director turns to Louis, his severe expression softening slightly. "Congratulations, Louis Carrel," he says, acknowledging his success. Then, however, Aronian leans closer, his gaze becoming sharp and penetrating as he studies him. "Your hair color," he says quietly. "It is quite concerning." The chapter ends on an ominous note of mystery. Suddenly, Louis Carrel feels a surge of power. His hair and eyes momentarily change color, a phenomenon that does not go unnoticed. Still processing what is being implied, Louis asks cautiously, "What do you mean?" The Academy director, Aronian Smith, a powerful Grand Master, steps closer to Louis and gently lifts his chin, examining him with keen interest. Aronian makes a surprising offer. He tells Louis that if he is admitted, he will personally prepare a special magical potion to conceal Louis' unique and striking traits. Louis, however, does not let himself be swayed. He thinks to himself that he doesn't know what the director is planning, but his priority is to pass the exam. He steels himself for the second trial. As Aronian leads Louis away, a man wearing glasses watches them from afar with an expression of pure contempt. The camera closes in on the man's face, his eyes burning with anger and resentment as he watches Louis walk away. This noble examiner, furious at the director's intervention on behalf of a commoner, clenches his teeth and swears he will not forget the name Louis Coe.
The scene shifts to the second training field of the Arcanist Academy of Candria. An announcement echoes that the second examination will begin soon and that all examinees must wait. Out of the original 20,000 aspirants, only 1,000 remain. The majority of them are nobles who have received extensive preparation, elite education. Almost no commoners remain, which makes Louis stand out even more. A group of arrogant nobles approaches him, led by a young man with brown hair and a purple tie, all of them carrying an air of superiority. The leader looks down on LOSE with open disdain. Next time, no one will help you, commoner. LOSE meets his gaze, calmly, his expression composed, yet with a blade of steel hidden in his eyes. One of the noble's companions joins in, sneering. Exactly. If the director hadn't helped you, you would have been disqualified a long time ago. With a barely perceptible smile, Louis replies in a voice so calm it is devastating. Honestly, you're a complete idiot. The noble freezes, stunned by LOSE's audacity. What? He shouts, completely thrown off. Louis continues, his tone filled with unshakable confidence. The Grand Master has far better judgment than any of you. Enraged, the noble raises his fist. Damn you, do you want me to beat you to a pulp? He threatens. But Louis does not flinch. A smug smile appears on his face, as if he had been waiting for exactly this. The noble's eyes burn with pure fury at Louis's defiance. Unable to restrain himself any longer, he throws a punch straight at Louis's face. Then I will, he roars. At the last instant, Louis's eyes shine with icy calm as he observes the incoming attack. With astonishing speed and precision, Louis stops the noble's punch using only 2 fingers. A spark of energy flashes from the point of contact. Not magic, but the effect of an ancient martial arts technique that disrupts the opponent's flow of energy. The noble goes rigid in shock, stammering, I can't move my body. Louis's technique has completely neutralized his attack and his ability to move. Lo calmly reveals the name of his martial art, Meridian Rupture, followed by a spiral point strike with controlled yet overwhelming force. Louis not only halts the attack, but sends the noble flying through the air. The noble's companions watch in horror and disbelief, screaming his name as he is defeated. His body slams violently into the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust and plunging the area into stunned silence. The remaining nobles in the group stand frozen, utterly shocked by the sudden and humiliating defeat of their leader. One of them rushes to his side, kneeling to check on him and asking in panic if he is all right. Writhing in pain, the noble realizes he cannot feel his arm. He tries to move his hand, but it is completely paralyzed. Furious and humiliated, he accuses LOSE of using poison. Damn you, he screams. I'm reporting this right now. Louis steps forward calmly and clarifies the situation with quiet superiority. It wasn't poison, he says. It was martial arts. With an intense gaze, Louis tells him that he had been holding back because of a promise he made to his mother, but even he has his limits. Then Louis speaks a line filled with martial wisdom. The only people who have the right to strike others are those who are prepared to be struck themselves. Just as the tension is about to explode once more, a young blonde noble, Lord Kane, steps in. He grabs Louis's wrist and reminds him that they are in the middle of an examination. With a serious look, Kane asks whether Louis is truly willing to be disqualified over a fight. Louis falls silent, lowering his fist as he assesses the unexpected intervention of this new figure. The humiliated noble, however, refuses to back down. He shouts at Kane to stay out of it, and once again threatens Louis. You damn commoner, I'll kill you. Lord Kane turns towards them with undeniable authority. You know who I am, don't you? You are the ones who should step back. The group of nobles freezes, intimidated by Kane's presence. Gritting his teeth, the leader tells his group to forget it and retreat. As they walk away in defeat, the leader looks back with open contempt, his resentment plain to see. Filled with hatred, he mutters to himself, commoners and nobles alike, all trash. Remember this. His words reveal both deep prejudice and a wounded ego. Louis watches them leave, thinking to himself that nobles are all the same, using their status to do whatever they please. Once they are gone, Lord Kane approaches Lewis. "Lewis, right?" he says, recognizing his name. "You're strong and brave." With a friendly smile, Kane extends his hand and makes a surprising offer. "If you want, let's team up." Kane's offer immediately draws the attention of all nearby examinees. Several girls squeal with excitement, asking if Lord Kane is looking for teammates. In an instant, a crowd surrounds Kane, begging to be chosen. They shout out the names of their noble families in desperation, trying to impress him. Off to the side, Lewis watches the spectacle with unshakable calm. Whispers ripple through the crowd about Kane's identity. He's the young master of the prestigious Oranka family. The common belief is that teaming up with him guarantees passage to the next round, which only fuels the frenzy even further. Lewis observes the scene with clear disinterest, letting out a simple huff at the chaos forming around him. From high above the arena, director Aronian Smith decides it is time to proceed. A powerful magical circle activates at the center of the field, floating in midair. The director's voice echoes across the grounds. "Congratulations on passing the trial of will." With a faint smile, Aronian announces the next phase. What comes next is the trial of power. Suddenly, a glowing symbol appears on the chest of every examinee, catching them completely off guard. "What is this?" someone exclaims. Lord Kane, ever perceptive, immediately identifies it. "Is this Earth attribute mark?" he wonders aloud. His expression changes as he realizes the implications of the magic about to be unleashed. And in the very next moment, all the examinees feel their bodies grow unbelievably heavy. One by one, they collapse to the ground, unable to withstand the crushing pressure. A gigantic and intricate Earth attribute magic circle spreads across the arena, its power descending on everyone at once. Lights up the entire floor of the arena, revealing the source of the immense pressure. The director explains the conditions for the second examination. While under the influence of Earth attribute magic, the examinees will fight within this arena. The same nobles who had mocked Lewis are now struggling on their knees, their bodies trembling. They cannot believe the power of a Grand Master and wonder how they are supposed to fight under such conditions. Chaos spreads as fear sets in. Amid the turmoil, one examinee suddenly shouts, pointing at someone, "Hey, look at that guy over there. He's walking like it's nothing." It is Lord Ken. Despite the crushing pressure weighing down on everyone else, he remains standing, barely among the fallen bodies of his peers. Kane, drenched in sweat and wearing an expression of disbelief, stares ahead, unable to trust his own eyes. He is looking at Luce, who is not only standing, but steadily walking forward. With every step, cracks spread across the stone floor beneath his feet, the pressure concentrated entirely on him. From above, the director watches as Luce ascends onto the stage with no visible effort. The examinees sprawled across the ground cannot believe what they are seeing. That's impossible. Someone made it onto the stage? Director Aronian smiles with satisfaction and a hint of intrigue. "You're the first again," he thinks to himself. Those still lying on the ground recognize him. It's him, the one who passed the first trial first. They cannot comprehend how he is enduring such pressure. Lord Kane reflects silently, stunned. "For me, this is barely manageable. Even I, with 3 years of Grand Master level training, can hardly stay standing." The director's voice echoes once more. Only examinees who remain standing may participate in the next trial. Those collapsed on the ground can only wonder how he is doing it. With a wave of his hand, Director Aronian Smith conjures a sphere of light, preparing to reveal the next challenge. A weapon rack materializes out of thin air before the few who are still standing. "Those who wish to use weapons may choose from here," the director announces. The weapons spin slowly in the air, presenting themselves to their owners. Swords, bows, and spears await their owners. Without hesitation, Luce's bandaged hand firmly grips the hilt of a sword, choosing his weapon for the trial ahead. With confidence and practiced ease, Luce runs through a few sword movements, his actions revealing an instinctive familiarity. His calm stands in sharp contrast to the others, as he prepares for whatever the director is about to unleash. The director then adds a crucial rule. Choose whatever you like, but if you leave the stage, you will be disqualified immediately. Meanwhile, other examinees can barely hold on to their swords under the intense gravity. From his elevated position, Aronian Smith asks, "Are you ready?" And without further ceremony, he declares, "Begin the examination." With a snap of his fingers, the director gives the order that signals the true start of the challenge. Release the bound slimes. The examinees look around in confusion. Nothing appears. They're gone, one of them asks, bewildered. A pair of students whisper anxiously to each other. "What are bound slimes?" one asks. "How should I know?" the other replies, uncertainty thick in the air, while Luce listens attentively beside them. Suddenly, his sharp senses detect movement. His gaze snaps upward at once. Above, he thinks. High atop the domed ceiling of the arena, dozens of glowing blue spheres begin to materialize. One examinee shouts in alarm, "Hey, something's falling!" One of the spheres plummets straight down and crashes into the ground, revealing its true form, a gelatinous blue creature. There it is, a slime, simple in appearance and almost cute. At last, the examinees understand, slimes. So these are the bound slimes. As the slimes begin to move, the director's voice explains the scoring system. Blocking a slime's attack earns 1 point. Dodging an attack earns 2 points. Defeating a slime grants 5 points. Aronian Smith concludes with the most important rule of all. Rankings will be determined by total points earned. Only the top 100 will advance to the third trial. Luce absorbs the information instantly. The competition is brutally intense. Out of the 1,000 remaining candidates, only 10% will move on. Only 100 people, he thinks, his resolve hardening. The slimes appear harmless at first, bouncing around and emitting playful sounds, which causes many examinees to lower their guard. One student laughs with contempt. They look pretty stupid. Slimes are low-level monsters, supposedly easy to defeat. Another examinee, brimming with arrogant confidence, raises his sword. "Exactly, they're just slimes," he says, already imagining 5 easy points. He charges at the nearest slime. "Take this," he shouts, swinging his blade down. But the slime is far from easy prey. Its expression shifts into one of fury as it evades the strike with shocking agility. The instant it dodges, the slime launches a counterattack, firing itself like a blue cannonball straight at the examinee. The student's face twists into pure shock, completely unprepared for the speed and aggression of the small monster. Bam! The slime slams into his face with devastating force, proving beyond all doubt that these creatures are not weak at all. Another student can only stare in disbelief as a slime whizzes past him after incapacitating one of his companions. The examinee who underestimated the slime is sent flying through the air, knocked completely unconscious by the impact. The sudden ferocity of the slimes catches everyone off guard, and Archer freezes in place, unsure how to react to the chaos unfolding around him. Another student panics and screams a warning to the others. "Watch out, they're still falling!" Panic spreads across the arena. Slimes rain down from above, crashing into the ground and immediately attacking the examinees, turning the trial into a chaotic battle for survival. From the balcony, the director and the other examiners watch as disorder overtakes the arena. Students are thrown through the air and knocked out one after another. The examiners announce scores as they are earned, their voices highlighting just how punishing the test truly is. Number 2793, 1 point. Number 17638, 2 points. One of the female examiners turns to the director, her expression serious. "Director, this year's examination includes the young masters of the AAS family, the great noble houses Oranka and Duran. She suggests that a new record might be set this year. Down in the arena, Duran and a red-haired girl fight with remarkable skill, dodging and striking with fluid, elegant movements." Another examiner interjects, pointing towards the battlefield. "There are several like them. This year we also have outstanding commoners," he adds thoughtfully. "The boy you helped earlier is a commoner too, isn't he?" Director Aronian Smith turns his gaze towards Luce, his expression filled with intrigue. "He's an interesting one," he says. "He might show us something truly fascinating." However, another examiner brings him back to reality. Perhaps, but for now, he hasn't taken a single step.
Back in the arena, the focus shifts to Luce, who stands completely motionless amid the chaos. Like the eye of a hurricane, the other competitors begin to notice him. "What's that guy doing?" one of them wonders aloud. His companion scoffs dismissively. The slimes are way too fast for him to keep up with.
Looking at Lewis with open contempt, they mutter, "A commoner is still just a commoner in the end. He'll get knocked out soon enough." Lu, however, keeps his head lowered, fully focused, his mind sharp and alert. A slime takes advantage of what appears to be Lewis's inaction and dives straight toward him from above, aiming for an easy target. It plummets downward at full speed. Just as it is about to strike, the scene zooms in on Lewis's calm, composed face and the gleaming edge of his sword, ending the moment on a tense cliffhanger. The entrance examination of Candria Academy continues. Lloyd Deal prepares himself, his expression serious and focused, as blue energy begins to radiate from his body, ready to display his abilities. In the arena, the battle is in full swing. One examinee attacks a slime with his sword, while Lu Si watches from a distance, analyzing every movement with unshakable calm. Luce's incredible agility leaves the other competitors speechless. An archer and his partners stare in disbelief. One of them blurts out that he was sure the impact was unavoidable. They have clearly underestimated Lu Si. Luce doesn't just evade, he counterattacks. He releases a projectile of energy that tears across the arena at blinding speed. Luce's attack hits its mark, striking another examinee directly and proving that his power is not purely defensive. Despite the ferocity of the battle, Luce's face remains serene, his sharp gaze seeming to predict every move his enemies make. Still, he is not the only formidable fighter present. Another competitor unleashes a barrage of energy attacks, flooding the arena with blazing projectiles. It is Kane, a noble-looking examinee wearing a confident, arrogant smile, certain that his overwhelming assault is impossible for Lu Si to evade. He watches intently. Faced with a storm of attacks, Luce remains unmoved. His concentration reaches its peak. A close-up of his face reveals the intensity of his focus. No fear in his eyes, only cold, precise calculation. The scene suddenly shifts to a snow-covered landscape, a flashback to Luce's brutal training. There, in the middle of a frozen mountain, he faces 3 training partners. They hesitate, knowing they are supposed to throw stones at him, but fear it may be too dangerous if one of them lands a direct hit. Yet Lu stands firm before them. He reassures them with a confident smile, telling them it's fine, that there is something he needs to test. Convinced at last, his companions agree and shout for him to make sure he dodges as they prepare to throw the rocks. Here they come. A rain of stones is hurled towards Lu Si, creating a moment of imminent danger. It is at that instant that Lu Si activates his special ability. His eyes shine with an inner light as his mind begins to process everything around him. Luz recalls a hypothesis he formulated in his past life as a martial arts theorist, an idea that could revolutionize combat itself. He trained to transmit information at extreme speed from the parietal lobe to the cerebellum, allowing him to calculate attack trajectories and react instantaneously. His theory was simple. If he could achieve that level of cerebral processing, he would be able to face any attack. Surrounded by falling rocks, Luz prepares to turn his theory into reality. This is the ultimate test of his void combat calculation. The first step, gather. Luz absorbs all incoming information about the projectiles, their trajectories, speeds, and angles. The second step, calculate. His eye glows intensely as he processes the data at superhuman speed, determining the safest possible path. The final step, evade. With astonishing agility, Luz moves through the storm of rocks, dodging every single one without suffering even the slightest scratch. His training companions are left completely stunned, mouths agape at the incredible feat they have just witnessed. Slightly fatigued, Luz wipes the sweat from his brow, his expression of cold satisfaction. His technique, his lifelong hypothesis, has worked perfectly. Still within the flashback, Luz explains to his astonished companions the name of his new ability. "I call it void combat calculation," he says, though they can only stare at him in confusion. With an enigmatic smile, Luz begins to explain that it determines the outcome of battle itself. When the scene abruptly snaps back to the present, to the examination arena, there, Luz stands facing the slimes, charging straight toward him, ready to demonstrate the true power of his technique. It is a predictive art. His eyes glow with power as he activates his combat calculation, preparing to neutralize the threat. In his mind, complex physical formulas overlay the image of the slimes. Luz no longer sees enemies, he sees trajectories, velocities, and vectors. The slimes launch their attacks, but to Luz's hyper-accelerated brain, their movements are as predictable as mathematical equations. From an overhead view, the strategy of the slimes becomes clear, a coordinated assault from 4 directions. But to Luz, this is merely another variable in his calculation. He analyzes the situation with icy precision. The bound slimes possess speed and power, but they can only charge in straight lines. He has identified their fundamental weakness. His mind calculates the angles and rebound speeds, predicting their attack paths with astonishing accuracy. With elegance and no wasted motion, Luz takes a single step to the side, effortlessly evading the first charge with astonishing ease. All of the slimes miss, unable to adjust their straight-line trajectories. For Luz, with his predictive ability, dodging them is effortless. He keeps a mental tally, 4 successful evasions for a total of 8 points. But evasion is not enough. Next, Luz tightens his grip around the hilt of his sword, channeling his energy. The defensive phase is over. Now it is his turn to attack. With a sharp battle cry, he unleashes a slash of pure energy. My turn. Using his sword technique, Sword Severing Cut, he releases a blazing wave of energy that splits apart and annihilates the remaining slimes in a single strike. Luz's display of skill does not go unnoticed. Cain, the noble swordsman, watches from afar, completely stunned by what he has just witnessed. Even the exam supervisors are impressed. Did he read the slime's movements? One asks in disbelief. That perception? Another murmurs. Ike. Cain now looks at Luz differently. He realizes that Luz is not just another examinee, but a formidable warrior, a true rival. A sly smile spreads across Cain's face, the expression of someone well-versed in specialized combat techniques. I see, he thinks, having made up his mind. I definitely should team up with him. Suddenly, Luz senses a presence and turns alerted. He is not alone as he prepares to finish off another slime and earn more points. Slush. Another sword pierces the slime right in front of him, stealing the kill at the last second. The blade belongs to Cain, who has intervened from above, skewering the slime in a clean, decisive strike. LSE turns sharply, anger flashing in his eyes. Hey, he says coldly, his gaze threatening. You're stealing my prey. Cain, utterly calm and arrogantly composed, replies without hesitation. Well, what I stole wasn't yours to begin with. Their clash has finally begun. To prove his point, Cain launches himself back into the fray, moving with the speed and elegance of a master fencer. With a single precise cut, he cleaves the slime in half, stealing points that other examinees were just about to claim. Nearby, a group of rough-looking examinees struggles clumsily to contain a single slime. The gap in skill is overwhelming. Cain turns to Luz and gestures toward the others as he clarifies his logic. Steal from them, not each other. His targets are the weak. With a smile that is charming yet unmistakably dangerous, Cain formally introduces himself. I'm Cain. Want to steal points together? The offer of an alliance hangs in the air. Luz studies him cautiously, his expression serious as he weighs the noble swordsman's hidden intentions. Noticing the suspicion, Cain clarifies his motives. To be clear, I only want a high ranking. Then, to make things more interesting, he adds a challenge. And while we're at it, let's compete to see who gets more points. Cain's gaze sharpens, filled with provocation. Show me your maximum power, he demands, revealing that his true interest is testing Luz's strength. Luz returns the smile, a blend of confidence and arrogance. The proposal amuses him. You seem very confident in your abilities, he replies. Fine, if you insist. Tightening his grip on his sword, Luz prepares himself. The competition has just begun. The competition between the two prodigies is about to begin, but Luz adds a condition. I'll show you what I've got, he says, as they position themselves back to back. The loser will have to do whatever the winner says. Cain is genuinely surprised. It is the first time anyone has dared to impose terms on him. Unbeknownst to them, however, they are being watched from a distance. A furious archer curses under his breath when he sees that his two targets, Luz and Cain, are now together. The archer gathers his group. They had received orders from someone called Lord Schiff, and Kane had allied himself with Luce. With all this chaos, they could finish them off right now. It is the perfect chance for an ambush. The leader of the group, a man with a sinister gaze and blood-red eyes, smiles maliciously. Yes, the decision is made. Suddenly, a surge of energy streaks across the arena, marking the start of a surprise attack against the new alliance. Let's do it. The archer and his companions draw their bows, ready to eliminate the competition. A magical arrow flies straight toward Kane, but Luce reacts in a split second, shoving him out of the projectile's path. The eye sharpens with superhuman intensity as he activates his combat calculation, analyzing the incoming threat. In an incredibly bold move, Luce steps forward to intercept the arrow not with his sword, but with his own body. The archers do not stop. They unleash a rain of arrows, intending to overwhelm them completely. A violent explosion of red energy erupts at the point of impact. The attack appears to have struck true. Kane watches in horror as Luce takes the arrow head-on. The force of the impact is brutal. The archer smiles victoriously, shouting in triumph, convinced that his target has been eliminated. But through the smoke, Luce simply smiles. He is completely unharmed. The archer's smug expression twists into a mask of pure disbelief. What? He cannot comprehend how Luce survived. As the smoke clears, the unbelievable truth is revealed. Luce is not only uninjured, he's caught both arrows with his bare hands, held firmly between his fingers. Panic spreads among the attackers. He caught the arrows with his bare hands, the leader shouts. How could he react to that? Their plan has completely collapsed. Kane rushes to Luce's side, worried. Are you okay? That trash fighting dirty. But Luce, utterly calm, lets the arrows fall from his hands and replies casually, It's nothing. Enraged by the insult, the archer raises his bow again. Who are you calling trash? He roars. This time, Kane becomes the target. The archer unleashes his special technique, twin arrow. Dark purple energy coils around the arrows, and his eyes glow with a sinister red light. Two projectiles, one infused with dark magic, shoot forward at incredible speed toward Kane and Luce. This time, Kane moves. With a confident smile, he steps forward and flicks his rapier, shattering the ordinary arrows with ease. This level, he says casually, as if the attack were child's play. But the arrow infused with dark magic is different. It continues its advance, unaffected by Kane's strike. The dark arrow closes in, moments away from piercing Kane. His expression shifts, surprise mixing with tension as the threat bears down on him. A violent burst of blood splashes across the scene. Blood drips from Kane's palm as he warns Luce not to move. Stunned, Luce realizes that he was the true target of the attack all along. From a distance, two exam supervisors observe the situation. One of them, a man wearing glasses, points out the clear malicious intent behind the attack and asks whether they should be disqualified. However, the chief supervisor, a tall, blond man with an imposing presence, responds calmly. He decides not to intervene, trusting that the attackers will lose anyway, and orders healing potions to be prepared after the exam. Back in the arena, Luce, still processing what just happened, turns to the boy who saved him and speaks up, recognizing him. You're Kane, right? Kane, with a bold smile and gripping his sword like a baseball bat, asks the attackers if they have ever heard of baseball, confusing everyone with a reference from another world. True to his words, Kane uses his sword to strike two incoming energy projectiles, batting them back with the precision of an expert hitter. Complex mathematical formulas appear around Kane as he activates his unique ability, Void Combat Calculation, predicting and analyzing every movement of his enemies. Teeth clenched and eyes glowing with power, Kane focuses intensely, channeling his energy for the next attack. A strange smiling creature made of blue energy materializes along Kane's sword, ready to be unleashed upon his opponents. Kane swings his blade, releasing the energy projectile, which shoots across the Colosseum arena at terrifying speed. The group of three noble archers watches in horror as Kane's attack rushes toward them, leaving them no time to react. The projectile strikes the leader of the archers square in the face. The impact is so powerful that it distorts his features from the sheer force. The archer is sent flying, utterly helpless before Kane's overwhelming strength. He crashes to the ground, unconscious, a circular mark burned in his chest.
A voice announces his fate. Number 438. Disqualified. Kane lands lightly on his feet and declares with a grin, 1 down. Nearby, Luis watches in awe, thinking that this whole game of nobles and commoners is becoming quite interesting. The 2 remaining archers scream in fury when they see their companion fall. "Brother, how dare you?" they shout, unable to believe the humiliation they have just suffered. One of them looks around in panic. Huh? Where did he go? In the blink of an eye, Kane has vanished from their sight, leaving Louis scanning the arena as well, searching for his next move. His gaze, suddenly, Kane's voice echoes from above. He has leapt into the air and now descends toward them, shouting, "Here I am!" With a swift swing of his sword, Kane strikes the second archer, neutralizing him instantly before the stunned eyes of the last remaining companion. "Number 2, Kane declares without missing a beat. The same energy projectile that defeated the first archer now slams directly into the second archer's face. He is hurled through the air with a scream of pain, defeated in the same humiliating manner as his leader. The announcement follows immediately. The second attacker, number 0439, is disqualified. The final member of the group stares in pure panic, unable to comprehend what is happening. With a predatory presence, Kane appears right behind him and whispers coldly, "You're the only one left." Terrified and with no options, the noble archer attempts one last tactic, intimidation. He warns Kane that if a mere commoner goes too far, the upper echelon will not stand by and watch. Kane responds with complete indifference, casually stepping on his foot and saying, "Oops." The last archer collapses to the ground from the stump. From a distance, Luis watches the scene and sarcastically warns Kane to be more careful next time. Once the confrontation ends, Luis walks over to Kane to thank him for the help and asks with genuine concern whether his hand is all right. Kane smiles and brushes off the injury, telling Luis that he's surprisingly decent for a noble, while Luis gently holds Kane's bandaged hand. Amused by the comments, Luis replies that Kane is quite kind for a noble, and an unexpected sense of camaraderie forms between them. It is then that Luis makes a surprising revelation, asking Kane not to lump him in with ordinary nobles. He asks if Kane has ever heard of the great families and declares that he belongs to one of them, the Oranka family. It is explained that the great families are ancient clans that have produced numerous grand masters and sages throughout history, represented by silhouettes of powerful, regal figures. Their influence is so immense that they are portrayed as forces shaping the fate and wealth of the world itself. The power of these families rivals even that of the royal family, the traditional nobility, and the influential Arcanist Association. As they fight side by side, Kane reflects on Luis's revelation. Great families, huh? He thinks, realizing that nobles come in all kinds after all. However, Kane's overwhelming display of strength enrages other nobles in the arena. They despise him for being an interfering commoner and for aligning himself with Luis. A group of arrogant nobles furious over the defeat of the archers step forward and shout that they will not allow the pair to earn any more points. The tension spikes sharply. Luis and Kane brace themselves, standing back to back as powerful auras surge from their bodies, ready to face the crowd. A full-scale brawl erupts. One noble roars with hatred, shouting that commoner should simply disappear, as he and others charge straight at Kane and Luis. But not everyone is against them. A pair of fighters notice that Lord Luis has become a target and decide to step in. They're aiming for Lord Luis. "Let's help him," they say, rushing forward. These new allies, possibly commoners or low-ranking nobles, join the fray, shouting, "Let's take down those low-class nobles." The entrance exam instantly turns into a full-blown class war. The arena descends into total chaos. Fighters clash everywhere, weapons ringing and bodies colliding. Luis warns Kane to stay alert and silently vows not to lower his guard again while combat erupts all around them. Amid the turmoil, 2 new figures appear. A red-haired young woman in armor watches the scene unfold and smiles. "This is getting interesting," she says.
The warrior named Milana encourages her companion, a small blue-haired mage. "Milana, let's make those nobles who look down on you regret it," he shouts, and together they leap into battle with fierce determination. Cain moves swiftly across the battlefield, dodging attacks with effortless grace. He realizes that he has become the focus of many enemies and that continuing to rack up points may only invite more trouble. As if to worsen the situation, several slimes suddenly appear in the arena, catching Cain off guard in mid-jump. The blue-haired mage springs into action, using his staff to trip an opponent charging towards him. Taking advantage of the opening, Milana cuts down another enemy with a wide, powerful swing of her sword, sending him flying. Elsewhere in the arena, a new and formidable combatant makes his entrance. It is Fedrin, a massive red-haired man wielding an enormous hammer, crushing his enemies with raw power. He bursts into loud laughter, clearly thrilled by the battle. "Ha! Amazing! This is just amazing!" he exclaims, reveling in the chaos. With a wild shout, Fedrin declares that hitting people is far more fun than smashing slimes, and charges forward. He spins at a terrifying speed, turning himself into a living whirlwind of destruction. As his hammer tears through the battlefield, eyes blazing with fury, Fedrin unleashes all his strength in one devastating motion. His spinning attack strikes several opponents at once, hurling them through the air amid screams of pain and shock. When he finally stops, he surveys the results with deep satisfaction. The ground around him is littered with defeated students, groaning and unable to rise after the crushing blows of his hammer. Meanwhile, the exam supervisors continue to observe from above. One of them asks the director whether they should intervene and stop the chaotic brawl, but the director calmly replies that it's fine, youthful energy is important. Another supervisor voices concern. If all the nobles are disqualified in this free-for-all, won't that be a problem for the academy? The director, utterly unshaken, responds that the academy has its own rules and that they need not worry about public opinion. His subordinate nods, suddenly understanding. At that moment, a blinding pillar of golden light descends from the sky and explodes at the center of the arena, bringing the raging battle to an abrupt halt. Floating within the brilliant radiance, the director raises his arms and solemnly announces, "With this, the second exam has ended." With a smile, he informs the exhausted participants that the scores and rankings of the successful candidates will be announced shortly. The battle is over. Students lie scattered across the ground, completely drained. One of them notices that the effects of the earth magic have faded, while another complains bitterly about how tired he is. The injured examinees are instructed to drink the healing potions that have been prepared for them, and several students hurry to help their fallen companions. Cain holds one of the potions in his hand, observing with curiosity the magical aura emanating from the flask. Marveling at its mysterious power, he comments on how expensive these potions must be. But Luis approaches him with a teasing smile and asks what is wrong. With an air of superiority, Luis tells Cain to relax, joking that he will not bother him even if he wins. Cain can only sigh at his arrogance. The director speaks again and with a wave of his hand conjures a gigantic magical scroll in the air to announce the results of the second exam. As the scroll slowly unfurls, Luis confidently asks Cain what place he thinks he got, already assuming that both of them have passed. Meanwhile, the defeated nobles scoff and laugh, mocking that the commoner does not even appear on the list. Luis looks up at the scroll in confusion when he sees that it only displays results up to 6th place, and his name is nowhere to be found. The director announces that the top 5 examinees have surpassed previous records. The 5th place is revealed first, Milaniano Roy, the small blue-haired mage. To everyone's surprise, 4th place goes to Kaanka. However, the image displayed alongside the name shows Luis with a serious expression, creating confusion between the announced name and the person shown. 3rd place is then announced as Feiyurin, and the image reveals the red-haired warrior wearing a confident smile. Despite the name being masculine, Luis stares in disbelief, unable to understand why his name has still not been called. He wonders out loud if he was disqualified for attacking those bastards. The announcement of the second test results echoes throughout the arena. Second place is awarded to Luis Carroll, who has obtained 887 points, an astonishing achievement for a commoner. Kane Oranka, a blonde noble, looks confused. He does not recognize the name despite having interacted with Luis earlier, highlighting once again the invisibility of commoners within noble society. Luis approaches Kane, referring to him as that commoner from before. Luis, wearing an enigmatic smile, simply replies that it is a secret, keeping both his identity and abilities hidden. Accepting the evasive answer, Kane reminds Luis that he has won their bet. Luis postpones his reward, saying he will tell him later after the exam, and Kane agrees. At that moment, everyone's attention turns toward the announcement of first place. The four remaining the best candidates, including Luis, Kane, and two female warriors, wait as attention continues to rise. Then the announcement finally comes. First place with an unprecedented record of 888 points goes to Neil again, another commoner, a warrior with an imposing physique. Neil's in the arena while holding his massive hammer. Neil Gunn smiles confidently, his red eyes shining with intensity. He feels that he has finally found worthy opponents and hopes they won't disappoint him. The noble crowd is left in complete shock. They cannot believe that two commoners have taken the top two positions, surpassing even Fee of the Duran family. Neil's power is overwhelming. Fee's hand, belonging to a young woman with blue hair, trembles uncontrollably. The result has deeply affected her as the pressure and surprise of being surpassed sink in. In contrast, a pink-haired warrior clad in armor looks thrilled by Neil's strength. With a provocative smile, she openly expresses her desire to face him in battle. A group of nobles erupts in outrage. Losing to mere commoners is an unbearable humiliation to their status and pride. One noble, consumed by anger, calls them a disgrace to the nobility, his face twisted with hatred and contempt. Meanwhile, the academy director watches the scene alongside an assistant. They remark on how unprecedented it is that two commoners from an orphanage have claimed the top ranks. With a wise gaze, the director poses a rhetorical question about the true purpose of the orphanages run by the Arcanist Association, hinting at a deeper truth. The answer is shown through a powerful image. Neil and Luis enveloped in red and blue auras of power, proving that true strength has nothing to do with social status. With the results announced, the director instructs those who pass the second exam to proceed to the next testing area. As they walk, Kane comments on how close Luis was to taking first place and wonders which of the two monsters is actually stronger. Luis, casually drinking from his canteen, simply replies, "Who knows?" The candidates arrive at the third training field of the Candria Arcanist Academy, a vast and dense forest. The start of the third and final test is announced. The director, levitating and surrounded by a golden aura, reveals the nature of the final test, a survival trial, a battle royale of emblems. He explains that each participant will be given a magical emblem, and senior students will teleport them to random locations throughout the forest. The emblems float towards the examinees. The objective is simple: collect as many as possible, and any method is allowed. Luis, Kane, and Neil receive their emblems. The director then issues a crucial warning. Anyone who loses their emblem will be immediately disqualified. Only the top 10 candidates, based on the final number of emblems collected, will earn admission. Kane tells Luis that they should act separately since high-ranking participants like them will become prime targets. He advises Luis to be careful as he reunites with his own group of nobles. Luis promises to do his best to survive. Luis holds his emblem with a cunning smile. He understands immediately that announcing the rankings was a deliberate tactic meant to turn the top candidates into targets. Far from being worried, his expression shows that he is ready for the challenge ahead. From afar, the director watches with a satisfied smile. His stage is perfectly set. With a final mental command, he challenges the students to prove their worth and survive. The trial has begun. Deep within the forest, Luis feels resolute. Admission is just one step away, and he is determined to win no matter what the cost, fully prepared to face whatever comes his way. Suddenly, a contemptuous voice stops him in his tracks. Someone calls him a commoner, and from the sound of approaching footsteps, he knows they are not alone. The confrontation he expected has finally begun. One of the nobles, still offended by the rankings, steps forward, wielding a massive axe with a malicious grin. He tells Luis that he has finally found him and is ready to avenge the humiliation they suffered.